A claim exploded across social media in early 2025. The United States had deployed 150 warplanes toward Venezuela under orders from President Trump. The headline sparked panic, confusion, and wild speculation across the internet. But before we imagine bombers darkening Caribbean skies, we need to separate viral fiction from actual military reality. The truth behind this claim reveals something far more complex than a simple deployment order. And understanding what really happened teaches us how modern military power actually works in the 21st century. Can a president really send 150 warplanes overnight? Or is military power more complicated than a single order? In January 2025, tensions between the United States and Venezuela reached a new peak. Disputed election results in Venezuela and increased rhetoric from both governments created an explosive atmosphere. President Trump, who had previously taken a hardline stance on the Maduro regime during his first term, returned to office with renewed focus on Latin American policy. Social media posts and some fringe news outlets began claiming that the United States had positioned 150 combat aircraft for potential operations against Venezuela. The claim matters because U.S.-Venezuela relations have been strained for over a decade. Sanctions, diplomatic expulsions, and regional proxy conflicts have defined the relationship. Any genuine military buildup would represent a dramatic escalation with serious implications for oil markets, regional stability, and international law. But the claim also matters for another reason. It demonstrates how military misinformation spreads faster than strategic reality. Before examining the 150 warplane claim, we need to understand the actual U.S. military posture in the region. The United States maintains several key installations in the Caribbean and Central America. These include Soto Cano Air Base in Honduras, forward operating locations in Curacao and Aruba, and extensive naval facilities in Puerto Rico and Florida. On any given day, the United States has roughly 20 to 40 aircraft conducting counter-narcotics missions, training exercises, and routine patrols across the Caribbean basin. Not hundreds, poised for invasion. Venezuela itself maintains a military of approximately 123,000 active personnel. They're equipped primarily with Russian and Chinese systems, including Su-30 fighters, S-300 air defense missiles, and various ground forces. However, years of economic collapse have severely degraded maintenance, training, and operational readiness. Intelligence assessments suggest that less than 30% of Venezuela's air force is flight-ready. Fuel shortages have grounded much of their fleet for months at a time. This creates a dangerous asymmetry where Venezuela's paper strength looks formidable, but its actual combat capability is far weaker. The invisible pressures here include Venezuela's crumbling logistics infrastructure and political fractures within their military command. There's also increasing dependence on foreign technical support from Russia and Iran. Meanwhile, U.S. military planners face their own constraints. Stretched global commitments, congressional oversight requirements for military action, and the political costs of another foreign intervention after Iraq and Afghanistan. The 150 warplanes claim appears to have originated from a series of misinterpreted and deliberately exaggerated social media posts in mid-January 2025. The actual sequence of events reveals how facts became fiction. On January 8, 2025, the U.S. Southern Command announced routine military exercises with Colombia, called Resolute Sentinel. The exercises involved approximately 12 U.S. aircraft, including F-16s and refueling tankers. This is an annual exercise, one that has occurred for more than a decade. That same week, a U.S. Navy carrier strike group conducting scheduled operations in the Atlantic was photographed approximately 800 miles north of Venezuela. On January 11, a Spanish-language Twitter account with roughly 50,000 followers posted a claim. 150 American war machines are positioned against Venezuela. The post combined multiple unrelated elements: the Colombia exercise aircraft, the carrier air wing, which includes about 60 aircraft, some Coast Guard assets, and several Air Force transport planes operating elsewhere. It was packaged with dramatic music and stock footage of fighter jets. Within 48 hours, the claim had been shared more than 200,000 times. By January 14, the story evolved even further. Some accounts began adding Space Force satellites, drone operations from 3 different bases, and even military aircraft conducting completely unrelated missions in the Middle East. The number 150 became a viral anchor point. Specific enough to sound credible, round enough to remember, and dramatic enough to share. Now, let's examine what can actually be verified through public sources. and what remains speculation or outright fabrication. The U.S. Southern Command did confirm Resolute Sentinel exercises with Colombia, involving multiple aircraft and approximately 400 personnel, from January 8 to January 20, 2025. Flight tracking websites showed 11 U.S. military aircraft operating in Colombian airspace during the exercise window, matching the official description. The USS George Washington Carrier Strike Group was also confirmed operating in the Western Atlantic on January 10, 2025. However, the carrier was positioned near its routine patrol zone for counter-narcotics operations, approximately 800 nautical miles from Venezuelan territorial waters. Defense officials, speaking on background to Reuters and the Associated Press, explicitly denied any unusual military buildup targeting Venezuela. A Pentagon spokesperson confirmed only routine training and counter-narcotics operations, consistent with normal U.S. Caribbean presence. The claim also fails basic military logic. Deploying 150 warplanes would require massive logistics preparations, visible weeks in advance. Venezuelan state media did amplify the 150 warplane claim, presenting it as evidence of imperialist aggression and justification for military mobilization. President Maduro referenced unusual military movements in a televised address, but provided no specific evidence beyond the social media claims themselves. Alternative interpretations do exist. Some analysts suggest the viral claim may have been deliberately planted as a form of information warfare. What remains genuinely unknown is whether any classified reconnaissance or intelligence gathering flights occurred beyond public tracking systems. These gaps are normal in military reporting. Behind the viral headlines and strategic analysis are real human consequences. Families in Venezuela, already struggling with hyperinflation and shortages, experienced genuine fear when invasion rumors spread. In the border regions of Colombia, communities that have absorbed more than 7 million Venezuelan refugees watched nervously. One mother in Cúcuta, Colombia, told reporters she began packing emergency supplies, remembering how quickly her own family had to flee violence years before. For U.S. military personnel conducting actual routine operations, the viral claim created confusion and frustration. Pilots flying counter-narcotics patrols found themselves tagged in conspiracy theories. Their standard missions were suddenly reframed as preparation for war. One Air Force officer told military reporters, "We're literally doing the same job we've done for 15 years, and suddenly, we're the villains in a fake invasion story." The information chaos also affects real policy decisions. Venezuelan military officers monitoring international news must now filter genuine threat assessments from viral fiction, potentially leading to dangerous miscalculations. Disinformation doesn't just spread false stories. It erodes the shared reality needed for rational diplomacy and conflict prevention. Understanding why this false claim spread reveals something crucial about modern conflict. Information warfare often precedes, and sometimes replaces, actual warfare. Military capability in the 21st century isn't just about hardware. It's about perception, narrative, and the speed of information. The 150 warplane claim succeeded, not because it was true, but because it fit existing tensions and confirmation biases on multiple sides. And that leaves us with a final question. If a false military claim can reach millions in 48 hours, how do governments and ordinary citizens distinguish real threats from manufactured panic? The strategic reality is this. If the United States genuinely intended military action against Venezuela, the preparation would look entirely different. Modern air campaigns require weeks of intelligence preparation, diplomatic groundwork, logistics staging, and legal frameworks. Operation Desert Storm in 1991 took 6 months of visible buildup. The 2003 invasion of Iraq involved months of public debate and United Nations presentations. Even rapid responses, like the 2011 Libya intervention, took weeks to organize, with extensive NATO coordination. Wars aren't ordered on Twitter. They're the result of massive institutional processes, involving thousands of people across multiple agencies and nations. Think of military power like an iceberg. The visible part, aircraft, ships, public statements, represents maybe 20% of actual capability. The hidden 80% includes intelligence networks, cyber operations, logistics chains, alliance coordination, and strategic planning. A genuine military deployment of 150 aircraft would expose that hidden iceberg through supply movements, personnel transfers, communications patterns, and diplomatic signals. None of those indicators appeared in January 2025. This matters beyond Venezuela. Every week, Similar false military claims circulate about China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and other global flashpoints. The erosion of factual military reporting makes real crises harder to recognize and harder to respond to appropriately. It's the strategic equivalent of crying wolf. The 150 Warplane fiction teaches 3 enduring lessons about military power and information warfare. First, specific numbers and dramatic claims spread faster than careful analysis, regardless of accuracy. The human brain is wired to remember concrete details, even false ones, more easily than nuanced truth. Second, existing tensions create fertile ground for disinformation. The claim worked because U.S.Venezuela relations are genuinely strained, making the lie feel plausible. Third, denial often fails to overcome viral fiction because corrections lack the emotional punch of the original claim. For military analysts and policymakers, this case reinforces the need for rapid, factual public communication. The Pentagon's denial came 3 days after the claim had already gone viral. For citizens and news consumers, it demonstrates the importance of source checking and pattern recognition. Ask yourself, does this claim match historical patterns of military behavior? Are there visible logistics movements to support it? Do credible defense sources confirm it? If the answers are no, skepticism is warranted. The meta-lesson here is profound. In modern conflict, controlling the narrative matters almost as much as controlling territory. Wars are now fought simultaneously in physical battle space and in information space. A fake story about 150 warplanes can shape public opinion, influence policy debates, and create real-world consequences without a single aircraft ever taking off. In January 2025, a viral claim alleged that President Trump sent 150 warplanes toward Venezuela. The reality was far simpler. Routine military exercises in Colombia, involving 12 aircraft, and a carrier strike group conducting normal Caribbean patrols. No invasion was planned. No massive deployment occurred, and no unusual military buildup targeting Venezuela took place. What changed wasn't military posture. It was the information environment. Millions of people worldwide believed a false story, demonstrating how quickly military disinformation spreads. And the real threat wasn't 150 warplanes that never existed. It was the erosion of factual military reporting. That makes future crises harder to assess accurately. Looking forward, several outcomes appear likely, each with different confidence levels. First, U.S. Venezuela tensions will remain high, but are unlikely to escalate into actual military conflict in 2025. The costs of intervention, diplomatic, economic, and military, vastly outweigh any potential benefits. Second, similar viral military claims will continue appearing about Venezuela and other geopolitical flashpoints as information warfare tactics evolve. Third, Venezuela's internal economic and political crisis will continue deteriorating, regardless of external military threats. Fourth, social media platforms may implement improved verification systems for viral military claims. However, enforcement is likely to remain inconsistent. The most important outcome, though, is educational. Audiences are becoming more sophisticated about military disinformation, but the arms race between fact-checkers and fiction creators continues to accelerate. Military power in 2025 isn't measured only in aircraft and missiles. It's measured in information, perception, and narrative control. Understanding the difference between viral fiction and strategic reality is no longer optional. It's now a crucial citizen skill in the social media age.